Yo, what's going on, y'all? It's Cone back here again today with another video, and today I want to talk for a bit about the Cleveland Cavaliers. As I'm sure you all know at this point, they just lost in the second round in 5 games to the Boston Celtics. Credit to them, though, they did put up a good fight in the series. They won Game 2 by 24 points, only lost Game 4 by 7 despite Donovan Mitchell and Jarrett Allen not playing. Allen missed the entire series, and he was big for them all year. And in Game 5, they kept it competitive for about the first half, ended up losing by 15 despite not only Donovan Mitchell and Jarrett Allen not playing, but Caris LeVert either. It was a series where they were decimated, where they put up a good fight despite that, and nobody picked the Cavaliers to win. Everybody thought the Celtics were going to go ahead and get this done. I personally picked the Celtics to win in 5 like they did. So all in all, I don't think it's the worst outcome for Cleveland. And overall, I think it was an improved season for the Cavaliers. Their wins did go down from 51 last year to 48 this season, but they once again grabbed the 4 seed and dealt with a ton of injuries, whether it was Darius, Garland, or Evan Mobley, both missing a ton of time at the same time as well, which is a massive obstacle to overcome. Donovan Mitchell, who was an all-NBA level player this season, he missed a number of games, yet they still found a way to go ahead and get their first series win as a franchise since LeBron James left. And a lot of the reason why they got to this point was Donovan Mitchell, who's again insane. Jarrett Allen had maybe the best season of his career, at least one that rivaled his All-Star appearance a couple of years ago. And I feel like JB Bickerstaff did a pretty good job overall despite the consistent injuries to basically everybody in the starting 5, it felt like. I will say they kind of fell apart post All-Star break, going below 500 from then until the playoffs. And while the Magic are really good, the Cavs probably would have liked to end that series a bit sooner than 7 games, especially getting blown out in a couple of those losses. And that was a team that they purposefully tried to play. They lost the last game of the season on purpose so they could play Orlando. It went to 7. They were down like 18 in Game 7 as well. They did get it done, but it was never super comfortable. There are a lot of pros and cons, ups and downs to what happened with the Cavaliers this season, but the group they have here is still really young. There's a lot of room for them to grow together as a core. However, it doesn't seem like they're going to get the chance to do so because one way or another, it's starting to seem like massive changes are coming to the Cleveland Cavaliers. Of course, the biggest question mark of them all in an offseason full of them for the Cavs is Donovan Mitchell, who they picked up a couple of off seasons ago. It was a shocking move. Everybody thought he was going to the Knicks, but he lands in Cleveland instead, a move that I really liked because Donovan at that point was competing for the title of best shooting guard in the world. A lot of people considered it as either him or Devin Booker. He was still relatively young, and he was going to join a really interesting young group of guys over here in Cleveland that he could grow alongside. Darius, Garland, and Jarrett Allen had just become all-stars. Evan Mobley, one of my favorite young players out of the entire draft class, had just competed for Rookie of the Year, had a world of potential, some interesting supporting pieces. It seemed like a fantastic move. There was always a risk, though, that he could end up leaving after his contract was up. There were a lot of reports that, even going back to the second they traded for him, that Donovan Mitchell was never going to re-sign in Cleveland. He wanted to be in a bigger market, and that's something that's now come to the forefront of the Cavaliers' minds because his last year of his contract is next season. They right now have the opportunity to offer him a max extension. They're certainly going to do so, but it's up to Donovan Mitchell to decide if he wants to accept that or potentially ask for a trade, or at just the very least play out the last year of this contract in Cleveland and check out free agency next summer. But before Spida can even think about that decision, there are already teams that are lining up to try and trade for him. Just over the past 12 hours since they got eliminated roughly, there have been a ton of teams that have come out and said that they're interested in one way or another, whether it's the Miami Heat, the New York Knicks, the Lakers, the Brooklyn Nets, the Memphis Grizzlies even, the Houston Rockets. You can think of a team, there probably is some report out there that they would be interested in making an offer for Donovan Mitchell, which makes a lot of sense. He's one of the best players in the world. I would say he's top 15 in the NBA, might be the best shooting guard in the sport, and it feels like he's just hitting his prime. If you can find a way to get him to extend with you going into this upcoming season as a contingency for trading for him, why would you not go for a guy like that? That seems like a no-brainer to me. And if I'm the Cavaliers and I don't get that extension, it almost feels like you have to go ahead and trade him. You can't risk losing a guy who can net you as many assets as Donovan could for nothing. If you lose him, this thing might end up falling apart. You need Donovan Mitchell to compete at the highest level if you want to try and contend in the East anytime soon. But if he's going to walk anyways, or there's the risk of it, you may as well just go out there and try and get some more assets. Maybe you can still build around Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, Jarrett Allen, or just switch up those pieces every now and again. Maybe even the assets you get from Donovan Mitchell can help you go for another star if somebody becomes available down the line. So if he says no to that extension, I think trade rumors are really going to ramp up, and that's when the real sweepstakes begins, having him as maybe the prize of the offseason. But while all these rumors are circulating, I do want to say I think it's not a foregone conclusion that he's going to leave. From everything I saw, at least on the court, it seemed like he really liked playing in Cleveland, everything he said in interviews. Maybe, of course, there's, cards being held close to his chest, but there's also reports that are saying that league circles are starting to believe it's more and more possible that he could stay with Cleveland long term. Brian Windhorst said that he's been getting mixed signals. Shams put in an article saying that there have been some frustrations in the locker room. There was a Cavs reporter that kind of doubled down on that today, which Donovan Mitchell tweeted and basically said that that's cap. There are reports all over the place. I just want to say I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that Donovan Mitchell leaves, even if it seems like at the moment it's a very likely outcome. But a lot of this is stuff that we kind of already knew. We always knew that this was a prove-it season for the Cavaliers with Donovan Mitchell, and that this summer is when everything changes for the better or worse for the franchise. What's made things even more interesting is what's come out ever since they got eliminated, where basically the future of almost all of their core guys is up in the air. Shams, I kind of alluded to this earlier, dropped an article basically detailing everything that happened with the Cavaliers this season, which has kind of become the norm, it feels like, for any team that gets eliminated and has big question marks going into the offseason. There's always an article that's ready to go, and in this one of the most interesting pieces of information was having to do with Darius Garland. Specifically, Shams reported that if Donovan Mitchell does end up staying, there's a good chance that Darius Garland, their other star backcourt guy, ends up requesting a trade. According to Shams, Garland's representation feels that he hasn't been utilized enough since Donovan Mitchell arrived. And yeah, the backcourt hasn't always been the best together. This season in particular was the worst year we've seen from Darius Garland since his sophomore year. He put up just 18 points per game, the lowest since that time, 2.7 rebounds, 6.5 assists, on the worst shooting splits he's had since his rookie year, where a lot of people called him the worst player in the NBA. Now, a lot of this could just be injury. He was dealing with that all season, and it was a variety of stuff, but it also just seemed like that the two of them haven't had a lot of on-court chemistry with each other, a lot of your turn, my turn kind of offense, not really playing well with each other off ball. It feels like they both should have the ball in their hands at times, but obviously you want to have it mostly with Donovan Mitchell, who's your best player. It's a tough situation to be in, and it feels like this has all led to Darius Garland's stock being at an all-time low. But at the same time, he was an all-star just a couple of years ago, and I think he's got a lot of potential. So with the Cavaliers bowing out in the second round and wanting to aim higher, maybe it's a good idea to shake it up even if you do keep Donovan Mitchell. Even if Garland doesn't request a trade, I think it's a route that they could certainly explore. There are rumors that Minnesota is interested. Maybe they want to go ahead and have him step in as the eventual replacement for Mike Conley, who's getting up there in age. A Brandon Ingram trade could be interesting. That's something that I feel like has been kind of rumored across the season. There's a lot of possibilities for Darius Garland, but it seems like even if one member of the backcourt stays in Donovan Mitchell, the other one's probably heading out. But it's not just the backcourt guys whose future is in question. The same thing is true for Jarrett Allen, who, as I mentioned earlier, had an insane season, career high 16.5 points per game and 2.7 assists to go with 10.5 boards and ridiculous defense. If it weren't for his insane play, the Cavs never would have been where they were in the standings, especially stepping up when Evan Mobley was out. But the key is, a lot of his best play came when Mobley wasn't on the court, and we've seen the opposite as well, where Mobley plays his best when Jarrett Allen isn't there, like we saw here in the playoffs. When Allen missed time with his rib injury, Mobley was better than ever in the postseason, putting up 17 points, 10.3 rebounds, and 2.6 assists on over 60% shooting from the floor and 29% from three when Allen was out of the lineup here in the playoffs. He felt way more aggressive playing that 5 spot. He even had 33, 7, 4, 1, and 2 last night in their Game 5 loss, which is easily the best playoff game of his career. He did it efficiently too. It has been a question mark for a while about if these two bigs fit, because neither one of them are great shooters. Mobley has tried to become better in that regard, but he hasn't reached that point quite yet. Jarrett Allen, I don't think shot a 3 this entire season. I don't remember one if he did. There are some problems, and it kind of messes up the offense a little bit. They need more creation. Maybe moving Mobley to the 5 is a better long-term fit for the team, and it seems like the Cavs might consider that as a possibility. According to Shams, there is a real possibility that Jarrett Allen is dealt to possibly help Mobley become more comfortable in that starting unit, and again, just kind of shake things up. There is, I would imagine, a pretty big market for Allen with how good he was this year. Some teams that have already been reported as interested or potentially interested include New Orleans, Oklahoma City. As a Thunder fan, that's kind of interesting, and the Kings. I don't know why the Kings would be interested, because Sabonis and Jarrett Allen feels weird to me, but the rumor is that they are interested. I think as well, with him being under contract for the next few years and not making that much money, the Cavs could get a pretty good return, get some decent value back, and that could help them either reshape the roster using those assets to trade for a different player, or maybe they just get real contributors and fill out the roster a little bit better, because depth is still kind of a problem with this Cavs team around whoever's left, because we don't know who's still going to be here. The entire core four outside of Mobley has been involved in rumors somehow and may or may not be back with the team next season. And even with Mobley, there's concerns surrounding him as well, because he hasn't taken the offensive jump that people are hoping for by this point. As a massive Mobley believer, I thought by now he would be averaging nearly 20 points per game. He would at least be able to knock down an outside shot consistently, create off the dribble. Hasn't reached that point, and maybe he never will. Maybe he really is just a more limited offensive player with ridiculous defense. There are a lot of questions surrounding the Cavaliers, and regardless of who is here, who isn't, this feels like the end of the Cavaliers as we currently know them. Even with the coaching, apparently JB Bickerstaff's future is up in the air because players lost faith in him throughout the season. They collapsed after the All-Star break, which has been something they've done in the past. He and the front office butted heads. A lot of stuff coming out in that Shams article. I highly recommend reading the full thing if you want an overall grand picture of where the Cavs are as a franchise. But basically, it's kind of a mess right now with as many question marks as answers. Overall, this Cleveland Cavaliers team is just one of the most interesting squads out of anybody going into the offseason. They have the chance to single-handedly swing the landscape of the NBA, whether it's trading Donovan Mitchell, a top 12 to 15 player, maybe even top 10, depending on who you ask, and send him over to a team like, say it's a team on the verge of contention, turn them into a bona fide championship team, or somebody who's kind of already there, maybe turn them into the favorites. Donovan Mitchell is that level of player. Even if they just send out Darius, Garland, and Jarrett Allen, both of them I think could have massive potential in a new environment. They were both all-stars recently. They're relatively young. You put them in a new spot, they can make a bunch of strides. It's going to be really interesting. We'll see if they keep Donovan Mitchell. That's, of course, the number one thing. And if they do, is it Garland who requests out? Do they trade Jarrett Allen to open up for Evan Mobley? Do they run the double thing back with the bigs? And even beyond just the core guys, you have to upgrade the supporting cast too, because currently it's just clearly not good enough. They've got a lot on their plate. I'd love to hear if you're a Cavaliers fan what you would do this offseason. What do you think happens? And just everybody in general, what do you think is going to happen with the Cavaliers? Do you think Donovan Mitchell gets traded? If you do, where do you think he goes? If he gets dealt, what do the Cavaliers do from there? Should they just trade a bunch of their guys and try and start over? Do they try and repackage some of those assets for another player to try and upgrade and run it around a new star? I don't really know, because the Cavs could go basically any direction. But when you have 3 out of your core 4 guys all up in the air in terms of their futures with the franchise, it's hard to really gauge what they're going to look like going into next season. But regardless, it feels like this is the end of an era for the Cleveland Cavaliers, and big changes are definitely on the way. I appreciate y'all watching. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos. I'll see y'all later. Real one, sit back.